Welcome to Your Family's Health, the program that focuses on healthcare issues with unique and different modalities for taking charge of your health today. Experts talk weekly with our continuing roster of guests from around the country and right here in Nassau County to keep you up to date on the latest health issues and trends. Take care of your mind, body, and soul. Spend the next half hour with the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC, and get on the journey to better health.
Hello and welcome to Your Family's Health. My name is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College. And today you're going to meet a woman who had a life-threatening event and was forced to completely change her lifestyle when it came to food, and wants to help others who may be handling the same situation before it gets to a boiling point, as it did for her. My guest today is the No Sugar Baker, Jayne Jones, author of Cookbook of Healthy Living and No Regrets. Jayne, or should I call you Miss No Sugar Baker, welcome to Your Family's Health, the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
So let's start talking and learning about you, and tell us your story, the first chapter of your book, which really does outline your very moving story. Can you summarize it in a few minutes? What happened to you?
Of course. So I ended up on my 44th birthday, believe it or not, ended up in the emergency room. I went there fighting tooth and nail. My husband dragged me. Embarrassed to tell you, my blood pressure was 289 over 189.
Wow.
My glucose level was 600. I never knew what a glucose level was before I ended up in the ER. They said I was inches away from having a stroke. They diagnosed me after running every single test in the world. They diagnosed me as severely diabetic. And the ER physician told me, for the rest of your life, you need to eat lean meats and salads. And she sent me on my merry way. What she didn't tell me was the next day I was going to wake up to no eyesight, which continued that way for about 3 weeks. 6 months later, insulin-free, diabetic medicine-free, living sugar-free, 60 pounds lighter, my vision was back to 20/20. I used to love to bake before I got sick and kind of threw everything in my kitchen away. So everybody kept telling me that you just need to get through the holidays. If you just get through the holidays, everything, then we'll be just fine. Well, got through the holidays, and I found myself at the grocery store and decided, I'm going to try to bake sugar-free. I didn't tell anybody I was trying to do it. First thing I brought over to my parents, who are snowbirds from a northern state, and they live now in Florida during the season. They started to cry, and I was like, oh my gosh, does it taste that bad? They're like, no, it's actually fantastic. And that spirit and our energy and our daughter is finally back. I'm a lawyer by trade, so I kind of have I worked in politics. I have kind of a large Facebook network and presence. I didn't want to tell everybody really what happened to me. So I thought it was easier to do it through pictures of food and kind of saying, here's how now I'm baking, here's how now I'm cooking, so to speak. Here's how I look now, type of thing. And our daughter came home from college during COVID, and she was like, hey, people really like what you're doing. You're sort of like the No Sugar Baker. You should start that as a Facebook page, because people really like what you're doing. Just to make her happy. That's exactly what I did, but I took it one step further. I actually started a blog at the same point, www.nosugarbaker.com, which tells everything I went through. Talks about having diarrhea in the airport bathrooms. Talks about not knowing if all of a sudden I get vegetable oil in scrambled eggs, which happens a lot of time at restaurants. That increases carbs and sugar content, and then I would get sick, right? Or the vision starts to get really blurry if I was to eat a banana. So I started posting the blogs, and I never knew. My parents were like, are you sure you want to tell all these gory details? And I'm like, they kept saying that if it helps one person, it's the right thing to do. Well, we're just 3 years into the blog. I have about 175,000 followers. I hear from people every single day, 2 cookbooks. And we're actually going to release a food product in January, hopefully.
Awesome. So when did this event happen?
It happened on my birthday in August 4 years ago.
So you were diagnosed at that time to be diabetic?
Mm-hmm. Severely diabetic.
And that was...
My A1C, I think at that point was over 12. I didn't even know what A1C was. Now I see it on commercials and TV every single time. So
from that incident, did you go cold turkey, no sugar, or did you gradually wean yourself off?
No. I went cold turkey instantly. And leading up to that, people always ask, they're like, didn't you see the signs before you were basically in the emergency room on your deathbed? I ignored all the signs. At first, I thought I drank a lot of diet pop. I'm from Minnesota. I drank a lot of diet pop, diet Coke, to the point of I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would guzzle 6 to 8 cans, and I'd go to sleep and I'd wake up the next day and be like, when did I drink all that Diet Coke in the middle of the night? So was that craviness so bad? Was that dehydration? So I gave up soda about a year before I was diagnosed, just kind of thinking it was the soda that was causing me stomach problems. Then I gave up red meat because I had this terrible theory that every single time my husband and I would go to a fancy restaurant, I would get sick. So I was like, it must be the red meat I'm eating. Well, it turns out every single one of those side items that I was ordering, thinking I was having less calories, was full of sugar. And that was actually what was making me sick.
Yeah. When it came down to the no sugar title, where did that come from? That came from your daughter, or?
It came from our daughter. Yeah, she's the one who said you're sort of like known as a no sugar baker. And I was like, that's cute. We'll run with it.
So when you are doing a cookbook with all of these wonderful, yummy looking desserts in your book, tell me how do you get it to taste sweet? What are you using?
Well, I use a couple different products. I've tested them all out because the number one thing I have to test out on the market is the glucose level. I have to know if it's going to raise my glucose level or not. That's the most important thing, right? 2 for me is if I'm going to get a headache from it. I know there's a lot, and I want it to be all natural. And the third thing is taste.
Right.
I want it to be as much close as what sugar. I haven't had sugar in 3.5 years, right? So I have no idea anymore what sugar tastes like. So I want to make it, to my mind, what's close to sugar. So I use a couple products. I use Pure Cane, which is an all-natural sweetener made out of erythritol. And then every once in a while, I also use Swerve, which is an all-natural product. You can find it. All the popular stores have it. That's made of root vegetables.
It's made of vegetables?
Root vegetables.
Wow.
I always get the question. People are always like, if you don't use sugar, you must be cooking with honey. And I always kind of like get a little smirk on my face. I'm like, well, honey is full of sugar.
Right.
If I was to start baking with honey, it's just a switch for a switch. It's like dumping maple syrup into my cookie dough, right? I'm like, I can't do that because, again, I would lose my eyesight if I had one of those cookies. That's not going to work. So I have to be completely sugar-free.
So the challenge with diabetes is not just cutting back on sugar, it's also the carbohydrates. So when these yummy desserts that you have, I know you decrease in the sugar, but how do you dial down, if you will, the carbohydrates that you put in some of these yummy desserts?
Well, I'm not eating a pan of bars anymore. I'm not eating the entire batch of chocolate chip cookies I'm making. So I'm definitely reducing serving size. I'm also using a keto wheat flour that is very low in carbohydrates. I also, once in a while, I use almond flour. Now, here's the deal on almond flour. When you bake with almond flour, it doesn't really give the rise, right? You don't get really the rise of the baking. So that's why I use those keto wheat flours. And that they really, to me, they work well and they work great. I also eat less than about 20 carbohydrates a day myself. That's kind of been my magic number. So having a treat every once in a while, being that I'm not cooking something out of my, I'm not making a pie or eating a whole pie or eating a whole cheesecake or eating even a slice of cheesecake or a whole thing of cookies every single day. Heavens no, those carbohydrates would be a lot. But every once in a while, I understand what it's like to want to indulge and to have a treat. And that's why the cookbooks are so great. There's 2 of them.
So you still have to monitor in terms of the portion size that you have, even though this is no sugar. You still have to look at your carbohydrate intake as well.
I look at carbohydrates and I look at calories.
And calories. The book is divided into different sections. So the first one is brunch. Tell me about these different sections and how did you come up with it?
Oh, that was easy. So I wrote all the recipes first and had to post it on the blog. And then the followers' questions were like, "Hey, do you have a cookbook of all this great stuff? We love a cookbook." And like I said earlier, I've authored 5 published books of other genres and different things. So writing a cookbook was actually fairly easy. Then the second one came out the next year right after that. But my biggest thing was you have to be able to live. Right? You got to be able to have dessert, but you also need to be able to live during brunch. You also need to be able to have a soup or a salad. I'm a Minnesotan, like I said, and that's Minnesotans love hot dish. We love a good lasagna. Pasta. I haven't had pasta. Again, for the 4 years of my life, I haven't had it, but I make a really mean, great lasagna that is completely cheese-based noodle. Fake noodle, of course, because it's based on cream cheese and mozzarella and a little bit of egg. So I had to figure out how a way to make that, but I also want to make it so it's not, one of the most important things is, for me, it wasn't about having people go and buy a bunch of powders and like I always say like lemongrass or stuff that they don't have in their own kitchen, because it has to be doable and you have to be able to go to your pantry and be able to do it. I always say too that, for me, good nutrition has been the best medicine.
Absolutely. You're listening to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard, and today you're meeting the no sugar baker, Jayne Jones, author of the Cookbook of Healthy Living and No Regrets. So I would just ask this question in terms of the beautiful, yummy, you got to seeing this book is very pretty, the pictures in it, the bars and the cookies and the desserts. Talk to me about that popcorn cookie.
Yeah, it's a fun one, right? It's a fun cookie.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. One of my favorite cookies is actually the No Sugar Baker chocolate chip peanut butter bacon cookie.
Bacon.
I think you're right. Peanut butter, bacon, and chocolate chips is my favorite cookie. People are like, "What?"
That's a good
Until
match.
you try it, I'm always say, "Don't knock it." Right? But I had to be creative. I always feel like now my kitchen is kind of like a science laboratory. It's kind of like a culinary lab, right? And I have to figure out what works and what doesn't work. I used to love popcorn before I got sick, so I have to limit the amount of popcorn I can eat now because of the carbohydrates. Right? I can't have corn anymore. Corn's gone because of the high sugar level and the high carbohydrate level in corn. But I'm like, what if I was to sprinkle 2 or 3 kernels of popcorn into some dough and bake it?
There you go.
Top it with it. Am I gonna get that popcorn feeling and that taste? Am I gonna feel satisfied with that indulgence? It works. It's a little different. It's also a good conversation item.
That sounds really good. And then the next section, which I love because I love a good soup. So, I mean, especially nowadays, when it's getting a little chilly out, a nice soup. What is your favorite soup?
Oh, that's easy. I love the cheeseburger soup. I used to make it before I got sick. And it's a hearty, good, warm. It's actually really good for a fall or winter day. So it's a cheeseburger soup. And now, I mean, here's another thing too. I never knew before I got sick, milk is full of sugar.
Yes.
I never knew that.
Yes.
Right?
Breads also.
Milk, just go plain milk is full of sugar. I never ever knew that. So normally when you make a cheeseburger soup, you're using milk, right? Or milk product. So I had to figure out a way to use unsweetened almond milk or also a heavy cream. So that soup is so good. It's so rich. It's so filling. And instead of potatoes, I usually use cauliflower. And I also learned about this ever since is that I use organic purple colored carrots. They're easy to find. They have less sugar content than the traditional orange carrot.
Wow. So the purple carrots. Now, where can I find these odd things? Do I go to Whole Foods to find them?
You can go any grocery store. And you never knew it.
I never saw purple carrots, but that's a very interesting.
Look, local. Look. No. Look. I don't know what your guys' major grocery stores are. But like a Kroger, we have Publix here.
Right.
They all have them. You just have to. Here's the deal. Like I never knew until I got sick. Half of all this stuff really existed and was at your fingertips. I never knew that. But you have to look for it.
Yeah.
And it's there, right? It's there. Walmart, Target.
Okay. Now, do you still eat at restaurants or do you primarily cook yourself?
No, I eat at restaurants. I enjoy going to restaurants. In fact, my husband and I have a list of 25 restaurants that we're going to go to this year that are all like farm to table and very unique, interesting things. Here's the deal. I've learned the hard way. I usually tell the wait staff that I'm allergic. I have an allergy to sugar. That's the best way of saying it. I'm like, well, I have an allergy to sugar, so I really need you to be careful of what I'm going to order and what I get. I have to look out for salad dressings, obviously, especially those homemade salad dressings. Yeah. A lot of folks dump sugar into it, or balsamic vinegar. Yeah. It's full of sugar. So you just have to be smart about knowing what you can order, what you can't. I love a good steak. Obviously, now a good steak is kind of a good thing for me. I get seasoned only with salt and pepper because a lot of those restaurants put sugar in their seasonings. You wouldn't think it, but they do. One thing I actually learned too was I would, oh my gosh, I just drew a blank, but put pancake batter into omelets. So to me, an omelet is a good choice because to me, it's like straight up eggs, right? But you have to be very careful in some of those popular restaurants do put pancake batter into their omelets.
What is your thought about stevia? Do you ever use that as a sweetener?
Stevia, every once in a while I have to be careful because I think it kind of gives me a little bit of a headache.
Oh, okay. All right. So
that's what I said about those 3 steps.
Right.
I always say to people, like, you have to find what works for your body. Not every single body has the same characteristics, right?
Right.
For me, the erythritol is what works. And I do happen to stick to the pure cane and the swerve as my choices. But stevia hasn't been necessarily the best of friends for me.
So the swerve, you mentioned that. Where can I find that? Can I find that online?
Oh, yeah.
The Swerve.
Super popular. Super pop. SWERVE. Super popular. Comes in 3 different types. Comes in the granular, a brown, and then a confectioner's. Same thing with the pure cane. You can find it at Walmart. You can find it at Target. You can find it at all the popular grocery stores, the big box ones. They carry it. And I found that it's either in 2 spots. It's either by like the health food type section, or it's right next to the sugar. You just have to look for it. Now, here's the deal. It's a little expensive.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is it pricey?
It all is, right? Because it's a specialty item. But here's what I always say. If it's a choice between an emergency room bill or that sugar, that grocery store bill, probably the better option.
It is. So tell me, how is your diabetes nowadays, now that you have made this change?
Great. Yeah, it's controlled. I'll never not be diabetic. I always laugh at people when they're like, "Oh, I'm never long a diabetic." Well, I'll always be a diabetic, right? I'm just a managed diabetic. So I test my blood every single morning just to make sure there's nothing that's incorrect. I go for my A1C every 3 months.
And what is your A1C? Would you like to share?
Oh, sure. I think it's been about 6.2, 6.1, 6.2.
All right.
Very manageable, very good on the scale when you're thinking that there's no, I'm not using any medicine to help.
That's very good. Good. So when it comes down to your baking and making these wonderful recipes, you said that you blog. So a lot of your, I guess the people who are buying your cookbooks, are those diabetics or just people who want to lose weight?
I think it's both.
It is both.
I think it's both, and it's women and men. They all write to me, right? So I feel like I'm friends with all of them now. So I know who they are. It's kind of like me. It's like 45 years old, and either you're told you're pre-diabetic, which is kind of a scary thing to know. You're diabetic, or there's diabetes in your family and you're scared to death it's going to happen to you. Or it's those keto eaters who are trying to lose an extra few pounds and are also just health conscious.
Yeah. Is there anyone in your family have diabetes as well that you cook for?
Not that I cook for. They're basically all deceased, and that's one of the things I learned was the emergency room physician asked my husband, who was more with it than I was, obviously, when I had the glucose level of 600. He called my parents, who were back home at the time, and they said, anybody in Jay's family diabetic? Well, turns out on both sides of my maternal and paternal grandparents, it's like a foursome, double whammy on both sides. And the ER physician, there you have it. She claims that diabetes generally skips a generation. I just got whacked from both sides.
Okay, so I was looking particularly at that banana bread without bananas.
Yeah, it's a good one. That's one of my favorites.
And just for the listening audience sake, tell me what's wrong with bananas. Why do we want...
Bananas are full of sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always say that for me, it's the best illustration. If I was to eat a banana right now, I would say it's about 1:33, and about 2:45, an hour and 15 minutes later, my eyesight would start to get blurry. Because the sugar levels are so high. Not worth it. Not worth the risk for me.
Right. It's not. So have you had your children? Do you have children?
I do not.
Okay. And do you have family members that come and sample your baked goods?
All the time. Absolutely.
And they say, what do they say? I mean, people that are used to, they love it.
Oh my gosh, they love it. And I have a team of taste testers, and they run everything by. They give me some definite opinions on things. I think my dad will tell you he thought that the chocolate pumpkin bread was the worst thing he's ever tasted in his entire life, right? But they also will be honest and say, "Hey, you this was good." I was just thinking, my husband just tried. What did we just make? Oh, I made a cookie that's got coconut. Unsweetened coconut,
my favorite,
obviously, with a sugar-free dark chocolate chip, and it was a really good cookie. I also made a candy jam, which is a substitute for M&M, popular. That's completely sugar-free cookie. That was good too, because it was very soft and moist, and just one of those cookies that kind of brought you back old school thinking.
Yeah. So you talked about a product that you're coming out with. Talk to me about that. What do you have on horizon?
Well, we haven't launched it yet, so it's kind of top secret. Just know that the No Sugar Baker is working on a food product.
Oh wow!
That we're hoping to launch, because I was invited to do a grocery store chain event where they was talking about the cookbooks, and they hooked me up with each of the events in January last year, kind of the whole new year, new you type thing, right? And everybody that came in to see me were like, hey, I love the cookbooks, but they had a sample there of the No Sugar Baker double chocolate brownie. It's like it hits your knocks your socks off. And everybody's like, hey, I like that brownie. I can't believe it's sugar. And everybody's like, I can't believe it's sugar free. Where do I get that brownie? I want to go buy that brownie right now. Well, my husband and I came back and we're like, people really wanted that instant product. So we hired a food research team of old Kellogg executives. And we came up with a food product that we're going to be launching probably in January. So you'll have to have me back on to hear all about it.
Oh my goodness. I'm excited about that. And it has to all do with sugar, I guess.
It's at the serving sizes come back to 0.5 grams of sugar or less. Oh, wow. And get this, 100 calories or less.
Oh, now see, that is where, right? What we all need to aim towards, God, not just sugar, but our calorie intake.
Both. But you have to watch
caloric intake, right? So tell me how you couple that at all of these wonderful desserts. Do you have an exercise regimen in between?
Oh, I have to exercise.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to exercise 5 to 6 days a week. I do, from the get-go, my doctor told me to do 45 minutes of exercise every day, no matter what it is, walking, swimming, whatever I want to do. I stick to that and I do it. And I actually really enjoy it. If I don't do that glucose level the next day will rise, no matter if I have sugar in me or no sugar in me. It's going to go up.
This blog that you have, tell me a story about something that someone shared about you and how this has really altered their ability to stay in the race and eat well, even though they're eating less sugar. Anybody that you know that have shared in the blog? Oh,
in the blog. Well, the blog posts are mostly authored by myself, but I will say that I have such a high following of followers. 175,000 people in such a short amount of time. They contact me constantly with questions, and they constantly tell me, thank you. Thank you for this. And I know what they're talking about because when I first got diagnosed, what's the very first thing anybody does? I can guarantee what you do. You get on the internet, you Google type 1 diabetes, you Google type 2 diabetes, you read all the symptoms, you feel a tremendous amount of guilt. So there was no answers out there for me. Basically, it was like, go and take insulin and, good luck to you and kiss off. I'm like, wait a second. I know what it's like. I'm authentic and I get it. So I had to figure out a way to get that message across to everybody. So I think that's what we did.
I am excited and I can't wait to try the No Sugar Baker's chicken like KFC. And I was reading the ingredients and I'm like, wait a minute here. Skinless chicken thighs, crushed pork rinds, black pepper, onion. Already I know I'm really aiming for something delicious here with some pork rinds in it.
Right. I agree.
So what do? You fry it and what do you season it?
No, you coat it. You coat it and then you bake it. And it ends up being just like a KFC.
Okay.
So it's a healthier measure because we don't want to use a whole. I guess I haven't tried my air fryer with it. That'd be kind of fun for me to try. I think it would work definitely in the air fryer too if you coat it well with the pork rinds and the seasoning.
Right.
Here's the deal: you want to be careful of those oils because oil does have a high amount of carbohydrates, which is going to translate to that sugar, right? And I know the opposite end of that. I know I've gotten sick from eating not knowing that stuff was fried,
right,
with high oil,
right. So thus the baking does help with the preparation instead of the frying. So you do.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. You're not coating it in a bunch of vegetable oil.
Right. So tell me your favorite dinner that you have from this cookbook. Mine's is the KFC chicken. What is yours?
Oh, that's a great question. Here, okay. So, of course, I'm a fan of the cheeseburger soup we talked about because that is a meal by itself. But you know what else I really like? Because I used to order delivery pizza all the time.
Right.
Because it's so convenient, so easy. I thought those days were completely over in my life. Mm-hmm. Now I make a cheese-crusted pizza that's homemade. So the crust is made out of cream cheese, mozzarella, egg, and a little bit of baking soda or baking powder to get a little bit of the fluff in the dough. Mm-hmm. You bake it, right? So you pat it, pour it out on your cookie sheet, and you bake it so that it ends up being your crust. And then I make a homemade pizza using that as the crust. You don't give me that because you can't tell the difference.
No, it sounds delicious. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would love to try something like that. Anything that has cheese in it and it's a crust, it can't be wrong. It has to be. It has to be right. But what do you top it with?
Oh, so I use a very low, very, very, very low sugar pasta sauce. You can buy at the grocery store. They're out there. The one I pick has less than 2 grams of sugar per serving. And I think the serving size is, and those are like 3/4 cups, which is a lot of sauce. And I use obviously pepperoni, sausage. I use the green peppers every once in a while. I got to watch those. Peppers also has sugar, friends. You have to watch that. And then, of course, mozzarella. And I'm not eating the entire pizza myself, right? Of course not. Maybe back in the day, but now it's, a slice or two. That's portion control.
Yes. You're listening to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard. And today you are meeting the no sugar baker, Jayne Jones, author of the Cookbook of Healthy Living and No Regrets. So Jayne, you got me going here with these pictures in this cookbook. Now the cookbook that you did before this one, was it different or does it?
Well, I think you might. So if you have the Cookbook of Healthy Living and No Regrets, is it the one in front of you?
It is.
That's volume 1.
Okay.
That's the first one.
Okay.
The second one's called the No Sugar Baker Cookbook of Healthy Living and Still Zero Regrets, Volume 2.
Okay.
So basically, they look very similar. One's orange cover, one's turquoise cover, and they kind of have the exact same concepts.
Okay.
Right? Not just a bunch of sweets. Everything on the sun in both of them allows peanut butter filled chocolate cake to sugar-free cinnamon rolls. What?
How do we get in contact with you? Your website?
Easy. Yeah, very easy. So you just go to www.nosugarbaker.com, www.nosugarbaker.com. Super clever, super easy. Otherwise, you can follow us on social media. We're on the Instagram at No Sugar Baker Cookbook or Jayne Jones, Jayne, because my parents were creative, or Facebook under No Sugar Baker. And then you can also obviously go to the very popular places where you like to buy your books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. They all sell the cookbooks there, but you can also buy it at our website, which is probably the cheapest price to buy it at, which is nosugarbaker.com.
So what is the one thing you want to leave us with when it comes down to no sugar baking?
Easy. You know what it is? It's this. If I can do it, anybody can do it. And I say that wholeheartedly because you got to think about it. I was definitely addicted to sugar because that first 3 weeks I lost my eyesight, right? That was a sugar level, the glucose level was so high coming down into normal territory, even though it really didn't dip down normal until about a year later. Again, if I can do it, you can completely do it. But don't wait until you're at the end of the spectrum, until the end of the rope. I was at the extremes. My doctor actually looked me in the face and said, hey, look, if you don't change your lifestyle, you're going to be dead in 4 years. I was 44 at the time. Don't get yourself into that spot.
Yeah.
Now, and I don't think I've lost my energy, right? So even though I'm completely sugar-free, I'm not sass-free, and I'm completely got a lot of energy and a lot of fun behind me.
I can tell. This is awesome. We thank you for your contributions, and thank you for being here. Jayne Jones, the No Sugar Baker, the author of the Cookbook of Healthy Living and No Regrets. We hope you stay safe and continue to stay healthy and continue to do the great work that you're doing.
Thanks so much.
This is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College, and we want to thank you for listening to this week's edition of Your Family's Health.
We'd like to get your feedback on your family's health. Send your comments by emailing them to whpc@ncc.edu. Podcasts of today's show are available on iTunes, Android Podcasts, and Spreaker. This program was produced at the studios of Nassau Community College in cooperation with the nursing department. Join us next week for another edition of Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.